All right, welcome guys. Think this is gonna work? There we go. All right, guys, this is a big lunch for me. We started this model year actually 3 years ago with getting the whole head shock group together and really laying out what the future was going to be. And you've seen some of that the last 2 years. But this is really the highlight of anything I've ever done in my life. So basically, let's get into this.
You have lived a quiet life, my friend.
No, this has been a lot of work. Working with the team throughout the years, and it's just exciting to release these things out into the wild and let you guys ride them this afternoon and really see what we've done here. Just to start though, Lefty, for the last 13 years, it's been the lightest, stiffest, strongest, smoothest fork in the world. Lighter than all your XC forks, stiffer and stronger than all your all-mountain forks, and smoother in all conditions than anything out there. It's really amazing to be able to pull that off. Lefty, superior performance through unconventional design. It looks different. We do that for a reason. There's no reason to just follow convention. It's for the weak. So we actually blow up the whole system. Think in a system integrated mentality. The bike is a complete system, and Lefty is what we've come up with.
And it's amazing. I mean, we've had this fork out for 13 years now, and still you ride the trailheads, people are like, wow, what's that thing? How does that handle? What does that work? And it's funny to deal with people that have ridden Lefty versus people that haven't ridden Lefty, and it's there's a pretty clear dividing line. There's not too many people that ride Lefty and go back to riding other forks. It is a significant advantage, and we've made it even better. So
yeah, so you want to think about the cornerstones of what makes Lefty a superior design, and that starts out with the dual crown inverted design and stiction-free needle bearings. If you think about the inverted design, that's really all about putting the meat where you need it. If you're the bulk of the fork is a 40mm stanchion at the top, a 32 at the bottom. Traditional forks, the exact opposite. Now, does that make any sense?
not to me.
Exactly. You think of your body, the frame, as fulcrum, and it's fighting those forces that are coming through. So it makes sense to have the larger part at the top. Everything else, as it's flexing upside down, that's not the way to fight forces, right? Everyone agree? Big nod?
Yep.
Okay.
There's a reason motorcycles have been doing this since, well, for decades now, right? Look at racing motorcycles, fat part of the leg is on the top, the skinny part of the leg is on the bottom. It just makes sense, right? Which end of a fishing rod do you hold? Do you hold the thick end or the thin end? I mean, I hope most people would raise the thick end of that, you know?
Not going to have much for that.
Yeah, it just makes a lot more sense. You figure that if you hold it like this, it's a lot easier to resist forces than if you hold it like that. That's all we've done. That's the inverted design.
Exactly. So once we've gotten the design right, we actually added a second clamp on top just to add more strength to it. By creating this box section in the front, we get an extremely rigid system.
Creates a super strong base that allows you to keep your fork pointed in the right direction. The analogy we like to use is, imagine you've got two shovels, and you stand with your arms like this with the shovel hanging down, and then have somebody push on the bottom of the shovels. Kind of hard to control where those go. You throw one shovel away and grab the other shovel like that, you get to control that shovel a lot better. So that's really what dual crowns do for you, and once you explain it like that, people are like, oh, that makes sense. All right.
Exactly. We're using material where it's needed, and if you look at traditional designs, what they're doing with the 32 on top, they're having to overbuild the crown area to fight those forces. And it really just, it's an uphill battle the whole way. So as you've seen in the past, we've used needle bearings which require flat races. That gives us the square and square contact. So no matter what the forces are, that torsional load, we're always able to fight those. If you look at traditional forks with the round and round design, they want to naturally roll and twist. They use more material, which is heavier, to try to tie the two legs together. Whether it's the crown, you've seen oversized steers, brake arch itself, or even through axles. So it's all in an effort to get some kind of torsional stiffness, which is automatically built into our system.
Yeah, but if you cut the crown and cut your quick release on your hub, you know, those things will spin freely around each other. So you imagine you put twisting loads on, those things want to rotate around. That's why people have gotten bigger and bigger quick releases, bigger and bigger crowns, all of which adds weight and adds weight where you don't want it. So.
Exactly. And last but not least is our patented needle bearing technology. The key to that is that under any load, the system is always active. And that's really the key to giving performance, you know, that contact, the way the fork feels and connects with the trail. It's super important to always be an active suspension designer. Everybody's got a pencil on the table, I believe. Just to give you a quick example, put that between your hands and roll it. Nice, smooth, easy going, right?
High tech.
The simplest things are often the easiest to explain. Take the pencil away. Rub your hands. What gets hot? Exactly. Heat's building up. The stiction it's there. That's the exact same thing you see with a traditional bushing style fork. Easy things you can communicate on your sales floor is what we're all about here today. You can see the contact area. As we talk, the contact area of the bushing. The more material they put there, the more support you get, right? With the needle bearing system, because the contact with the races is so tiny, but we get the full length. So we get that full support of a traditional bushing basically for free. So there's no extra stiction added to the system. So we've got the lightest, stiffest, strongest fork on the planet. What do you do next? Any ideas?
We decided we'd go back and take a good hard look.
We went all the way back and said, you know, it might be time to look at what we've been doing all along. And we decided we need to make the most maintenance-free, most trouble-free fork out there. And with that, we looked at our racers for inspiration. We know that over time, in the extreme conditions, you can get bearing migration. Enough time out in those extreme conditions, you can get contamination into the system. We've used a boot design which could take on water. So through that, we've created the sealed hybrid needle bearing technology. This can really be broken into two sections, the sealed section and the hybrid needle bearing technology. We're going to get into the sealed structure first.
You guys, this really is the most major redesign in Lefty's 13-year history. In a lot of ways, it keeps a lot of the same things, but we really went back to the drawing board and rethought how this fork goes together. So it's actually kind of a cool project for us.
Yeah, we started out looking, we wanted to make the most sealed system that we could. Externally, we have the Dearth-on seal system. This clicker's slow. First off, we started by sealing the outer collar. Pretty simple, we just added an O-ring where it interfaced with the outer tube. Then we started looking at the bottom. That was a much trickier proposition. As you know, we had a boot here in the past, and this square on square design did not work because there's no such thing as a square seal. So what we did was shorten up the races, which allowed us to create the round section, which allowed us to add a wiper seal. And this wiper seal is the key point to the Dearth-on system, sealing it up completely from the outside. So with that, it's important to notice that gravity is your friend here. Traditional forks, they're upside down, they have the wiper seal. As you wipe away the dirt, the next time it moves, the dirt wants to go right at that seal. This only has to move it away once and keeps it nice and clean all the way through the ride. From that, we were able to say, let's get rid of the 1960s robot boot. And we're introducing the sexy fork guard. We do have the exposed ano surface, which we want to keep nice and clean. So we have the Moto-inspired fork guard with an internal cable guide, which cleans up cable routing for us. By having the round tube exposed, we were able to add an O-ring, which makes it much easier to measure sag. Before you had to have a couple of friends, a calculator, and a ruler. This should really make setup more quickly, easily at the shop level. So that kind of wraps up the external aspects of it. Internally, the Durathon seal, we wanted to take advantage of the inverted structure and the wiper seal, and we created a lubricating oil bath that fits in the cavity between the internal leg and the oversized outer leg. That thin little area through there we can fill with oil, and it keeps the needle bearings running smooth, and it's held in place with the wiper seal. By being inverted again, gravity keeps the oil always there for the needle bearings and with the glide bearing.
You heard right, folks. Glide bearing in a Lefty. For the first time ever, we've spent many, many years talking about why needle bearings are better than bushings, and all of a sudden, bam! We go ahead and put a bushing in our fork. We are going to explain why we did that, but it's also important to know what Drew was just talking about. You know, if you look at most other forks, they're inverted like this. So if you put lube in to try and keep the bushing and the wiper seals lube, the lube runs away and it hangs out at the bottom of the fork, and the only way it gets back up is by splashing. So we actually utilize gravity as our friend, and it keeps these things completely lubricated, and it keeps this new glide bearing completely lubricated as well. So. Right,
with the hybrid needle bearing system, you know, we had sealed it up, but we said, you know, we could really take advantage of this and introduce a glide bearing that's in there as an assist capacity. If you look here on the slide, notice the bearing's location is up high where most of the forces are, so it's still doing the lion's share of the work. Where the assist bearing comes in is deeper into the travel. It gives us a better fore and aft and lateral stiffness.
We have an advantage over traditional forks because traditional forks rely on their bushings both to keep the fork from moving relative to one another, so it's involved in a support capacity. It's got to keep the two legs tight with one another, but then it also has to slide. We have needle bearings that handle the vast majority of the loads here, so we're able to take our bushing, glide bearing / bushing, whatever you want to call it, and it's it can be a little bit looser fit, so you get a lot less friction, and we have only one where the competition has 4+.
Exactly. It's also important to notice the location of the contact between the inner and outer leg. Through traditional forks, you have a bushing here at the top, you have a bushing here in the middle. That distance is the same starting point as the Lefty. Throughout its travel, it does get stiffer. As it compresses, as this distance decreases, it gets stiffer. But it's also important to note that the lower bushing to the wheel distance also remains constant. With our system, you'll notice that the increased overlap allows, as the bearing compresses, it rolls away, increasing the distance between the lower bushing. And what that does, it gives us an increased stiffness deeper into the travel. And the times you're deeper in the travel is when you're taking a bigger hit and there's more force on the system. So we're able to combat that much better than a traditional system. Also notice as the lower collar comes down towards the wheel, that gives us more stiffness at the end. So basically, we start stiff and get stiffer than everybody else. This is a graph. You know, we